Hello, everybody. Rob Mazak here. I am a psychic medium, and I do podcasts on a lot of different topics: metaphysical, spiritual, scientific, however it comes out. And so we just let it flow, pick a topic, pick an idea, and we're going to go with it. Sorry about the voice. It's a little off tonight because getting a little bit under the weather, it seems. That's okay. That's not going to stop me from putting out my messages. I've been called to put messages out to talk, whether people listen to them or not. That's just my job. That's what I've been told to do. So here I am. So I'm not entirely sure where to start with this one, but I would start with the statement that our reality might be a lot more strange than we could imagine, a lot different than we can imagine. It's interesting because I've heard a lot of different, or a couple different ways at least, of describing it tonight. And I say here, I did hear it on a podcast interview, and I also got it through a download. And what I mean by download is when I connect to that space that's outside of myself, whatever you'd like to call that, God, the divine, spirit guides, however that is classified for you. For me, it could be, it's almost like a nameless thing. But it comes through in my mind's eye, and I get conversations, I get thoughts, more thoughts, and sometimes visuals. And this time I got a little bit of both. I wanted to talk first about what I was given through my meditation tonight. Given as if, something that is kind of familiar to me, but explains a little bit different than it usually was or has been before. And if you look at quantum physics, quantum science, theoretical physics, all those things, they talk about the fact that there's multiple dimensions, there's multiple parallel realities, there's a lot of different things that are just a lot of different realities that are spaced very, very close to this reality, off by just a small amount of space or distance or energetic signature, however you want to look at that. But that they're so close to us, it's hard to imagine that we're not experiencing those things that are different from this reality. But of course we do. I mean, there's the internet is fraught with lots of different stories about, time travelers or people from other time zones or times, or other realities or other places that just seem to kind of bleed into this one. And you can explain it away in a lot of different ways. That's okay. Just as I was saying a few minutes ago, I've heard the same thing only in different ways tonight. So I wanted to share a couple of those and then kind of talk about some other things after that. So when I was listening to Billy Carson is a very high-end researcher into the origins of our history. I would venture to say the true origins of our history. And also that metaphysical space, spiritual space that is outside of us. And so he has a lot of really good research that's backed up with I would call facts. And some of them that were very, very easy to show the proof, and others you just have to kind of hang on to your hat and decide whether you're going to believe it or not. But he was talking in this podcast tonight with somebody, and they were asking what the definition of a dimension was, because science, quantum physics has been demonstrating, I don't know if you could say they proved it, but they've certainly demonstrated that there are 11 different dimensions. And this guy that was interviewing him said, I'm trying to wrap my head around what a dimension is. And I'll paraphrase, I'm sure. But Billy Carson talked about the fact that these dimensions are like different frequencies. This reality is tuned into a certain radio station, as an analogy. And these other dimensions are tuned into a different radio station, a different frequency. And so he calls them different frequencies. And he talks about the fact that we're in a third dimension as we're evolving through our humanity or human journey on this planet, this place, whatever it is, we have learned to master the first and the second dimension. The first dimension being like a straight flat line kind of thing. Second dimension being like circles and lines connecting things. And then the third dimension, I think he said it was like connecting all of that together and being able to manipulate the second and the first. And the fact that that we are in the third dimension, if somebody were to somehow bleed into our dimension, our third dimension from one of the other lower ones, they'd be incredibly amazed at this place. The other thing that really kind of struck me as interesting, well, a couple things. He said that, as an example, somebody that's in the fourth dimension, which he didn't really kind of touch on what that description was, but it's a higher dimension than what we have as the third. He said somebody from a fourth dimension or higher could look into our dimension as if it's sort of like the analogy of the spiritual realm, and we'll circle back around to that. But that somebody from the fourth dimension could peek into ours and literally see, kind of like from above, everything that is happening in this reality. Let's say peeking in on me in this apartment. They could see everything happening, past, present, future, all at the same time in this place. And I thought that was quite amazing, because if you look at the definition of the spiritual realm, I'll call it the spiritual realm, because that's what most people call it. And that's the space that many of my clients in hypnosis go to. Sometimes we go there on purpose. Other times they get there themselves during the process. But that's what they describe. And anybody that's had a near-death experience, same thing, where they go to this place where they're just like an energy, or not necessarily human, but existing as a consciousness, but that everything is happening at the same time. Past, present, and future, all at the same time. And that just really struck a chord with me, that somebody is describing science with the definition of what I described, the spiritual realm. And that just really kind of struck me, not odd, but it really struck me hard. What we all believe, we all just simply have different names or labels for them. And I think we're all looking at the same diamond, the same goal, the same things, and we're just calling them something different, calling them religion or whatever. And this just, I'll follow up with, oh wait, there was one more thing, actually, before I move on. And he also talked about the fact that these dimensions are so close together that they're like stacked on top of each other, not touching, but like a plank's length away, which a plank is one of the smallest particles known to science right now. I think there's some a little bit smaller that we've discovered, quarks and things like that, but Planck is definitely one of the smallest particles we have discovered at places like CERN and things like that, and they're stacked on top of each other. So that just kind of goes back to the idea that we talked about a few minutes ago, is that sometimes these other dimensions will bleed over into others on purpose or accidentally. I'm not sure which, or I guess it doesn't really matter, but sometimes I also believe that this is how we connect to all this information, these dimensions above. And the fact that science is also showing, once again, demonstrating and showing, I don't know about how they prove that, but that the brain and the mind actually operates on 11 different dimensions. Coincidence? I'm not sure. So when we create something, right, we actually, just like I talked about just a few minutes ago as well, in meditation, some people call that downloading, downloading a message. For something to be created, like the chair I'm sitting on, for example, that had to be a thought first, and that was pulled from outside of this reality, probably multiple dimensions above this one, and collapsed down into the third dimension, where we could then put it into a creation. And to me, that's pretty amazing. I mean, even Dolores Cannon talks about that. Dolores Cannon is the one who pioneered the hypnosis technique that I use. If you haven't heard any of her talks or read any of her books, you're missing out. She has gathered some really cool and interesting information over 40 plus years of doing hypnosis and connecting to the source. And she says a lot of the same things. So like I said, none of this is new. It's just described so much different, by many different people. And then I want to kind of slide over to the meditation I had this evening. I got off work, like I said, a little under the weather, kind of feeling a little icky, I guess. And so I decided I was just going to come home from work and not work out, do anything like that. And so I laid on the couch and, threw a blanket over me and did some meditation. I ended up having this conversation with an entity or entities that I would call interdimensional beings. That's what they appeared to be. That's what that's the way they presented themselves to me. I guess that's the best way to say that. And they talked about the fact that we are existing in a reality, but there are almost, as they put it, almost an infinite amount of other realities that are running parallel to this one. So they all start at the same beginning. So there's like an endless amount of me's out there experiencing, going through life. But they said that there was just a slight amount of difference between each one, because what they were doing is running simulations, if you will. They're running different ideas of the same creation that they're working through. That this is a way to figure out what works best for the evolution of humanity. In other realities, that are parallel to me, there may be a Rob that's really rich. There may be a Rob that's really famous, one that's really poor. And it's almost like they said that we could kind of mimic some of that side-by-side simulation ideas together, or simulation programs. He said, but we can't even get close to what they are doing. That they're trying to not start all the way over with humanity, because it's been done many times, and we've all heard the stories, the biblical stories, and they're written in many different religious texts, of the great floods that came through, the different Holocaust kind of things that literally wiped out the planet. But not only wiped out life as we know it, but it also wiped out the infrastructure. What I got out of that meditation was that I'll call them that they were very hesitant to completely start over again. They said that we've gained such success in the sciences and the creations and the ability to evolve and excel in life, that they didn't want to start back at zero. They continuously run these parallel, I'll call them simulations, realities, to see what's going to work the best and what's going to become best for humanity. I know those things sound a little odd and way out there. Of course they are. And I can't prove any of these things. I'm sure Billy Carson would struggle to absolutely prove that there are 11 dimensions. And I certainly can't prove what I'm talking about. But for me, it is one of the truths that I hold. And truth comes from, our own mind and our own programming and the way we were raised and all these different things we've been introduced to, things we've been exposed to. And I get that. My truth is not going to be yours. That's okay. But I've also seen some very interesting things in other meditations where timelines, all these multiple timelines, like for example the one I was talking about, but being shown it a little different, but that all these possibilities, all these timelines, all these different parallel realities will eventually begin, and probably not too distant future, the way I was shown, but that they would all eventually culminate into one reality, one timeline, one path, and that we would not every soul would make the cut if you think about it that way. Some souls will need to be returned, reused to come back and run these realities and simulations again. And I know it sounds a little like a quack in a lot of ways, but that's okay. Like I said, these are things that I see and I get, and whether they come true or not, some of it could be symbology. It could mean a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that this is literally what's going to happen. In a lot of ways, I hope it doesn't. But, to kind of go in line with that, many of the meditations I've been involved in or conducted, sat with, I've been getting a very strong message recently, especially, that it is now time for the harvesting of the souls. That those that are on the line of progression, those that are really evolving and becoming who they actually are, and not just some meat suit here, watching TV and gambling and playing, sitting and watching football games all weekend or drinking with their buddies or whatever, right? But they're actually doing something with their 75 years, that they get to try to figure out who they once were or who they actually are. A lot of people call it by different names. I mean, we've all heard it. I'm sure we've all heard it. Some people call it the Great Awakening. Some people call it the shift. Some people call it we're moving into, the fifth dimension. I don't know how we skip the fourth. Once again, we are all calling it something different. But I can tell you we're all feeling the change. I don't know too many people that have not reported feeling very strange, different things than they're used to feeling. It seems like tonight is just kind of a very strange and odd feeling. It's like I'm tired, but I'm not tired. And I'm sad, but I'm not sad. I'm energetic, but I'm not energetic. I don't know if I can explain it well, but it's very, very odd. And so I once again sat, in a nice hot tub of water to try to work on this cold or whatever's showing up here. But also kind of connect, because water is a really good medium for connection to that which lies outside of us. One of the things that I was shown was that what I am picking up is just this extreme sadness, but not sadness from me, but picking up the sadness of Mother Earth and the change and the heaviness of this transition, the laborious, how do I say it? Pool of mud that people are trying to work their way through. It's hard for me because although I'm empathic, I tend to be an empath on purpose. I'm not a wide open channel that, without the ability to turn it off. I can turn it off, but for some reason this is really breaking through the firewalls and the barriers, and it's really pinging me. And it seems like I'm watching everybody in their lives go through this just tremendous pain and problems and issues and changes. It's like people are being given the message and the opportunity to change, and they're not really getting it. They're not understanding that these things that are happening to them are messages to get them to stop and analyze their life, and they're just not picking it up. And it is very difficult to watch this happen to people around you every day that you work with, that are friends, that are family, and realize that if they could simply just understand the message and what is being told to them and what is being forced on them, that they have an opportunity to make the cut, as we talked about, to be able to evolve into the new earth or the shift or the new reality or all of that. But, it's even harder when even when you take the time to tell somebody these things or to bring it up to them, that they never change, or they rarely change. Even though they're getting beat down by the universe, as I like to say, that they are getting the knock on the door and they're just not getting it. And I think that's part of the sadness and part of the energy drain. And of course, there's a lot of different things going on that at least what we're being told about. Sun flares and changes in the heavens and changes in the energy of the earth. And I'm sure that it's not just the divine or other entities or other realities. I'm sure it's a lot of our own human people changing the place where we live. I was watching the weather radar in my emergency operations center where I work now, because we got to monitor the weather for the missions that are going on. I did a video on this a couple days ago, I believe. And I've heard about anomalies on weather radars and different things that demonstrate the possibility of weather manipulation. But I'm seeing it every day, all the time. And it's like everywhere I look, there are signs and symbology and things that are showing me, at least, that there are changes. And whether these are man-made changes or these are simply changes in the earth or something that's happening from dimensions outside of us, I don't know. But there are immense energetic changes happening. And that is honestly most of what I hear from new clients, especially, or even some that have been around a while. And you see it all over the social media. People are just like, they just don't understand what is going on. People that have never had paranormal experiences or spiritual experiences or any of that are beginning to have those, and they just don't know what to do with it. Do yourself a favor, people. When life is going the wrong way, things are, doors are closing, you're being, 2 flat tires on your way to work, you get to work late. Those could simply be signs from outside of yourself that, maybe where you work is not the right place. That maybe you need to find somewhere different. I mean, there's always a message in everything that happens. And we must pay attention. We must listen. Otherwise, we might get a spiritual hammer, as I call it, so big that we may not be able to recover. I think you get my point. Times are changing. Realities are squeezing together. Timelines are bending into one. All these things are happening. Changes on our planet, changes in our reality. They are happening, and everybody knows they're happening. But what are we doing about it? What are we doing to prepare ourselves for the laborious, energetic change that is coming, that is here, actually? But it's going to become even more intense. We need to put the work in. We need to really go within, connect without, do the hard work. Find out who we really are. Find out what it is that we're meant to do, why we're here in this short 75 years. You're not doing anybody any favors by watching television all day long, people making millions of dollars while you're sitting on the couch, sucking down a beer. I don't think that's why we're here. I'm not judging anybody that does that. I am just saying that you got to pay attention to the changes because they are paying attention to you. And if you don't do something about it, you're going to be one of those. You may be one of those souls that are harvested to be recycled, to come back and do it again and run the program all over again. And that may be what reincarnation's about. We've all heard about reincarnation. I really believe that reincarnation or some semblance of that does happen. And I don't believe that we cease to exist when we die here I believe we just change energy and we change our point of attention, and our consciousness opens up or changes, or we realize who we really were. Just imagine, though, that when you come to this place, as I've heard through hypnosis with my clients, that this is the most physical place in the universe. Not just a physical place, the most physical. Can you imagine coming here from a lower dimension or a higher dimension or wherever you come from the spiritual realm, from the source, and you get dropped into this most physical place? It's going to be hard. It has to be hard. Why are we here? Did we choose to come here? Sometimes. Did we get told to come here? Sometimes. But we're here. So we might as well do something with it. We might as well do something and pay attention, because they are talking. I use the word they loosely because everybody has a different definition of who they are, who guides us from outside of us. That could be God, that could be spirit guides, that could be ascended masters, that could be spirit animals, it could be all kind of things. Everybody has their own flavor of connection. And some are just walking around totally oblivious. I can't help what people do. I can only help me. And really, it's our own race. It is our own race. We're only competing against ourselves. We're racing towards our own future that we are absolutely in charge of. Nothing that happens in our life is anybody's fault but ours. We have to own what we do. We have to own who we are. We have to own where we're going, because nobody can do it for us. They can only walk along with us, but they can't walk the path for us. We come into this life alone. We will leave this life alone. We can have relationships. We can have friendships. We can have connections. And those will help us through this life. But we cannot rely on other people for our evolution, because if you do, you'll be sorely disappointed. I don't care who it is you're relying on. It could be the most special person in your life. And let's just face it, you are running your own race. I will get off my soapbox now, but you get my point. There are times of changing. The old end is near sign that people used to use on the corners of the streets, now comes across the internet. I'm not saying the end is near. What I'm saying is that we are moving in a direction that's going to cause great turbulence amongst us humans. And if we're not ready, if we're not prepared, we may very well be recycled and get to do it again. I don't know about you, my friends. I don't necessarily want to go through some of the things I've gone through in this life again, especially without remembering as I come in. So to summarize, we are here on a journey. We are here on our own journey. We are here to evolve. We are here to do something more than exist. We're here to do more than wake up by accident or as an accident. We need to wake up on purpose. We need to get busy with digging in and learning who we are, who we truly are, and move into that path of evolution. As usual, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about these kind of things. Go to my website, lifebymazak.com, lifebymazak.com. Find my contact page. Send me a message. Let's collaborate. Let's talk. Let's exchange ideas. I look forward to hearing from you, and you will hear from me again. Stay strong and live your life.